What a day, a dark and dreary and gray day, to remember the dark and dreary crucifixion of Jesus. And as if that's not enough, on Monday, the world watched in horror as Notre Dame Cathedral burned with devastating ferocity. We watched for hours as shock turned into pain, as the spire fell and as people gathered there began to sing. We watched and we waited to see what caused the fire and when it would end, to see just how much would be lost. And we prayed. It was a very solemn way to begin a very solemn Holy Week. The world wept as this landmark of France and of Christianity that has seen 850 years of pilgrims and visitors seemingly collapsed in a single day. There was something about that structure that had drawn people in over time. It provided a space where even the non-religious walked a little bit closer to God. It was a space where people became connected to something much bigger than themselves, where history and beauty blended together with a faith that transcends generations. That place created a community for people who didn't even realize they were searching for one. And Monday we watched it burn. And then we woke on Tuesday morning to images showing charred remains of a roof surrounding a seemingly intact altar and cross. After even the roof and the spire had begun to collapse, the altar and the cross above it somehow was still standing. And then we heard that even the relic, the crown of thorns, had made it out. And during Holy Week at that, I thought, mere days before the day we remember Christ's brutal crucifixion, days before we remember the time he wore the crown of thorns. And all of this, a beautiful reminder that even in the darkest of times, even when smoke and fire and flame cloud our vision, Christ prevails. Out of the rubble and destruction, out of our own mourning and grief, came good news. When the darkness of night lifted and the light of a new day shone, Christ remained there. There is something so sacred about that building, about something that has stood for so long and will even continue to stand through such devastation. A building that has seen so many souls in its lifetime and will continue to see souls searching and pleading for meaning, looking for some type of connection. And here we are today on Good Friday, where we too are pleading for meaning and connection. Now, yesterday on Maundy Thursday, we participated in Christ's commandment that we love one another by washing each other's feet and by communing together. And then we silently prepared the space for today, for Good Friday, where we stripped away all of the extras, the beauty of the cushions and the comfort that they offer, the hangings that hung on the altar, pretty much anything that resembles or says anything about Jesus. Gone in one night. We washed the altar and we even covered the cross. So now we sit here today in this bare place, denying ourselves of Jesus, stuck in the pits of despair over Christ's crucifixion, betrayed by those closest to him, abandoned by most of his friends, denied even by us. Jesus died on the cross with one criminal on his left and one on his right, and most of the people who loved him nowhere to be found, hiding away in fear of what might happen to them. Very human and very broken. The cross for them was the biggest symbol of death. And yet, somehow on this day, the cross became, for us, a symbol of faith, a symbol for those drawn into deeper relationship with Christ, a symbol that has such incredible power. It can create in us the deepest desire to be in relationship with something much greater than ourselves, knowing that even the most brutal of deaths leads to resurrected life with Christ. But not yet, because for right now, we sit in the moments of his death. Now, by the time Jesus was nailed to the cross, most of those whom he loved were gone. They left Mary and her sister and Mary Magdalene there, along with the disciple whom Jesus loved. They left them there to weep for Jesus because they were hiding somewhere behind a locked door in fear that being with Jesus might make them next. They denied Jesus. They betrayed him. Now, Peter got a little closer than most. He followed Jesus to the home of the high priest, but denying that he knew Jesus there in the courtyard, it's all the same, betraying him one more time. And it's easy to sit here and to talk about those who betrayed Jesus on that day long ago, but we're not innocent either. We too are fully capable and perhaps prone to betrayal. Through clouded judgment and fear, we betray too. We hurt each other. We look for what benefits us more often than the common good. We exploit people and land to make a quick buck. We turn the other cheek to injustice all too often, and we too forget Jesus' command that we love one another when it gets too hard or too inconvenient. When fear gets the best of us, we find ourselves hidden away behind locked doors as well. And there we fall into despair and fear, and we let uncertainty rule our lives, forgetting what Jesus has given us by being left on that cross to die, with only a few who loved him there weeping for him. But even through all of that, the cross goes from being a symbol of death to being a sign of life. And it draws us into deeper relationship with a risen Christ. And it draws us into community together with one another, even when we don't know that that's what we're looking for. It serves as a reminder over and over again that even in the darkest of times, when smoke and fire cloud our vision, Christ prevails. But over and over again, this story breaks our hearts. So for now, we weep with the women as they weep for Jesus. We weep with Mary as she watches her beloved Son suffer and die on a cross, as the world gave up the Son of God to be crucified. We weep together. On this Good Friday, the story is one headed towards hope. Out of death comes new life, and on Easter morning, Christ will prevail. We will once again rejoice together. We know what comes next. But in this moment, we are buried under grief and despair, behind our locked doors with clouded vision and hearts that betray. We are fearful. We search for Jesus, we search for community, and we search for meaning. In this moment on Good Friday, as we prepare for Easter, the day that comes next, we are torn apart with utter and inconsolable grief. Yet with even a glimmer of hope, we look toward the cross and we know what comes next. Amen.